Hi everyone, welcome to Virtual Back to School Night. My name is Eric Eichelberger and I am your child's science teacher for this year. My contact information is there on the screen, so feel free to pause or come back to this video if you ever need to get in touch with me. A little bit about myself. It's my 9th year teaching Science 8 here at Lake Braddock. I really like this class and it's been a good time and excited to be back for another year. I put my different schools up here, just a little bit about me. I went to Virginia Tech, go Hokies. And I went to Mason to study education, but I also put Lake Braddock and Cherry Run up here because those are my elementary school, middle school, and high school. So I'm a Bruin through and through, and I'm excited to be back here as a teacher. A little bit about the course. This class is an introduction to chemistry and physics. The goal of this class is to set students up with a foundational knowledge of a lot of different topics they'll see when they get to the high school versions of these classes. So we want to have them leave with the basics so that they're set up for success in high school. We have 4 units during this class. Right now we're doing physics stuff. We're in the first quarter, which is unit 1, and we're doing things like energy and forces. When we get to the second quarter, we're going to change gears. We're going to start talking about matter and its properties. This is our chemistry stuff, so things like the atom, the periodic table. In the third quarter, we're going to talk about changes in matter. What we mean by this is things like chemical reactions, balancing equations, your kind of heavier chemistry topics. And then in unit 4, in the fourth quarter, we're going to switch back to physics and talk about things like electricity and light and optics. I put hands-on science at the bottom here because this is a very hands-on class. We have 24 labs. Each lab has a hands-on component where we're either observing things, measuring things, or taking observations. We're trying to give kids that experience of what it feels like to actually be a scientist and discover on their own. Let's talk a little bit about the grading for this class. So we use what's called standards-based grading. Kind of a new word in education, but really it's just a way of measuring what do students actually know. So you might think, well, a normal grading system probably is able to measure that as well. But what we found is that a normal grading system sometimes tends to bring in things related to other topics. For example, like how nice things look, or the quality of the work, or was it even on time? And I'm not saying those things aren't important, they are important. But in a science class, what I really want to know is, have you learned the scientific topics that we want you to leave middle school with so you can be successful as a scientist in future classes? So what standards-based grading does is it really helps us see what topics kids are getting, what topics they're not getting, and then we can really form a plan on how to help them better understand their topics, and we can really track their growth throughout the year. We use a 4-point grading scale for middle school science. I don't think this is too unusual in other kinds of schools, so I think most people are pretty familiar with it. A 0 would mean that the assignment wasn't turned in or attempted. A 1 is what's called beginning proficiency. Essentially, we have the early stages of understanding the topic, but we still have a long way to go. 2 is kind of like that halfway point. We're progressing towards proficient. I kind of like to think of it like you got half of it. We have halfway left to go. 3 is where you're starting to show proficiency. You just might have the occasional error or misconception that we need to work on. And then 4 is you have mastered the standard that we're hoping you to get to in 8th grade science. So every grade you'll see in the grade book this year will be out of 4. Speaking of the grade book, we also are continuing our rolling grade book this year. So the grades in first quarter will count just as much as the grades in fourth quarter, and there's no resetting between the quarters. Your students' other classes probably have topics like mastery or practice or skills. We don't have those in 8th grade science. Instead, our categories are the 9 standards that the state of Virginia wants a student to learn in 8th grade. So when we do a project, or we do a quiz, or we do an in-class assignment, it'll go in the grade book for whatever standard it matches to. This is kind of nice because if you look at the grade report, you can see their grades for the individual standards. If you see that they have a 4.0 on standard 2, but they only have a 2.1 on standard 4, now we know that we should focus down on standard 4. We don't really need to focus too hard on the stuff that they're excelling at. We can now focus on the things where they're having trouble, and we can do things like extra practice or come to win time, or even retakes are available. Sometimes in the grade book you're going to see things that are scored but they're listed as ungraded. The reason for this is with standards-based grading is we want to track their practice and see how well they're improving, but we don't necessarily need to put it in the grade book because we're not done learning it yet. If you use the sports analogy, it's kind of like practice versus the game. Yeah, the practice matters. It does matter a lot. It's how you're successful at the game, but the game is really what counts for your results. So how can you help? How can you be active this year in your child's science class? First, please do check SIS and Schoology often. SIS is our grade and attendance program. I try to upload things pretty quickly. Most of the time, I'd say a week is the most you'd have to wait for grades to be updated. And Schoology is our new learning platform. It's going to have all the assignments on our Schoology page listed by lab. So as you're going through those, if you ever have questions, ask your kid. You can also ask me. I'm happy to help. I also encourage you to ask them what they're doing in science class. What lab did you do today? What topic are you on? What did you learn today? I find that science is one of those classes that's a little easier to talk about than some of the other ones because there are the hands-on things to talk about. It's easy to make connections to real life. So ask them what's going on. Last thing, occasionally kids get super excited about stuff they learn in science and they want to try more at home. I ask you to encourage them if you think that's a good idea. If you ever need help with materials or ideas, let me know. I'm always happy to help you come up with things to do. More concretely, if you're looking for ways to help, we could always use tissues, Clorox wipes, and paper towels to help keep our room clean. So if you want to send any in with your child, it would be greatly appreciated to us and the Green Dragon team. Last up, if you ever need me, email is definitely the best way to go. The phones honestly don't even ring during the school day, so it would just be you leaving a message and me getting back to you. So send me an email. I respond pretty quick. Also, check SIS and Schoology. And if you're left with questions, I'm always here to help. I truly do care about the success of your kid, both as a person and as a scientist, a young scientist. And I want to be part of their team to help them be successful. So if there's any way I can help you out with that, please let me know. All right, thanks for joining our virtual back to school night. If you have any questions, please reach out and please do check SIS and Schoology often, and I look forward to a great year.